In Jesus' name, amen.
All right, amen. So then we're going to look there in Ecclesiastes chapter number 1. We'll begin reading in verse number 1, where the Bible reads, "The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem." Verse number 2, "Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity." And I'm going to focus there. I derive the title of my sermon from the latter portion of verse number 2, where the Bible says, "All is vanity, all is vanity." That's the title of the sermon. Now, the book of Ecclesiastes, is considered a very difficult book to many, many people. A lot of people would label or deem the book of Ecclesiastes as being, very difficult to read, number one, but also a very depressing book. It's something that's brought up multiple times. And the first thing, we're going to be looking at the book of Ecclesiastes a lot, but the subject of the sermon is vanity. What the Bible teaches about vanity, and that's the theme of the book of Ecclesiastes, is vanity. That the word vanity is brought up in every single chapter, most chapters multiple times, but it's brought up in all 12 chapters but one of the book of Ecclesiastes. And even when it's not being used, the word specifically vanity is not being used, the subject is still being discussed the entire time. Now, one thing I want you to understand, a few things real quick, I want you to understand when we look at the book of Ecclesiastes, when we look at the subject of vanity in the Bible, number one is that the book of Ecclesiastes is a book of poetry. Now, a lot of people don't understand, a lot of people come to the Bible and they don't understand that a lot of the Bible is written and meant to be, poetry. There are facetious statements that God makes in the Bible. God oftentimes will, even to the point, I'll demonstrate this a little bit later, but God himself will exaggerate purposely. That's obviously not God lying when he does it on purpose to prove a point. God will exaggerate on purpose just basically to prove a point or to illustrate a point. Now, starting with the book of Job. So if you look at the books of the Bible, they're laid out in a very specific order in the Old Testament. And when you have Job, starting right there, that's your first book amongst the books of poetry. Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon. All of those books right there are in the section or the category of being poetry. A lot of people argue also about Solomon being the author. There is no question about that. The Bible tells you in verse number 1. "The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem." If you look down further, he says again in verse number 12, "I, the preacher, was king over Israel in Jerusalem." Now, if you know anything about the history of the nation of Israel, the nation of Judah, right after Solomon, there was actually a schism that took place. Where there was all the 10 tribes basically, 10, 11, it was a little bit mixed mingled with the other one because the Levites technically came down, some of the Benjamites did as well, but the northern tribe was considered Israel, and then the southern tribe became known as Judah. Now notice what he says here in verse number 12, "I, the preacher, was king over Israel in Jerusalem." So he's reigning in Jerusalem, but he's also reigning over what he considers Israel, which is both tribes at that time. That means that it was all one unit. Now, that happened, like I said, immediately after Solomon's reign, and we know that David was only the second king. So there's no way around. I looked it up, was very surprised that many people try to dispute that Solomon was the author, but there is no question about it. There is literally no other person in the Bible that could have been the author. There's no question that Solomon was the author. Now the name, Ecclesiastes, if the names of the books of the Bible obviously aren't inspired. The names of the books of the Bible are names that were given by the King James translators, other translators before them would name specific books of the Bible. They would derive those names from, they would try to name them appropriately, but what they are, they're transliterations from Greek words. It is very easy for a person who doesn't speak Greek to even figure out what the names of the books of the Bible mean. The only one that a lot of people may have trouble with is this one specifically, Ecclesiastes. But if you look at Genesis, we have many words that derive from the same meaning of that word Genesis, which is a transliteration from a Greek word. And the word would be like to generate, or genealogies, right? It's talking about the beginning of something. A generator is where the beginning, that's the power source. That's where that power is generated, right? So Genesis is referring to the beginning, the beginning of times. Exodus, right? We have, that prefix X, which means to leave. It means to go out of. That's referring to them leaving Egypt. From there, you have Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, referring to the Levitical law being given. You have Leviticus, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers. That's where the genealogies are all mentioned. Deuteronomy, that word means second law. That's because the law was given for the second time in Deuteronomy. If you look back in Exodus and Leviticus, it was also given in Exodus and Leviticus, and then it's just reiterated in the book of Deuteronomy. And God does that in many places in the Bible. He does that. He gives us 4 Gospels. And you say, why? That's so that we can compare them. We're commanded to study the Bible, not only to read the Bible. The Bible says, study to show thyself approved unto God. So we should compare 2 books that have 2 accounts of the same story, and when you compare them, you can learn many things. If you read one, it may seem like, man, it seems like there's a discrepancy here. Obviously, we know the Bible's perfect, but that's why God would provide that other account, and then you can put the 2 pieces of the puzzle together, and it makes perfect sense. Now, when you keep going on, a lot of the other books start to become people's names, who they believe the story's about, or who the translators believe maybe authored that particular book. The book of Ecclesiastes, the word Ecclesiastes comes from a Greek word that means ecclesia, which is like, it means church or congregation. And that Greek word actually derived from a Latin word. Spanish came from Latin. I don't know if a lot of people knew that or not, but the language of Spanish derived from Latin, as did Greek. And if you know that the Spanish word for church, it's iglesia. Bautista Iglesia, that would be a Baptist church, would be Iglesia Bautista. But Iglesia is very similar to ecclesia. That is the Greek word here. Ecclesiastes actually means, it's referring to the preacher of the congregation, the leader of the congregation. And that's why it starts out with the words of the preacher. So this is also being basically labeled or named after the person that they believe authored the book, which would be the preacher. So, that's another cool thing to take away from this, to learn that Solomon was a preacher. David also was a preacher. These men of God, Jehu, I noticed this the other day in my reading, I read over this so many different times, but Jehu, who was a soldier, who also became the king of Israel, who did great things, he also was a preacher. He was the one, I don't know how I read this, but he was the one that went to Jehoshaphat and told him, shouldest thou love the ungodly, and shouldest thou help the ungodly and love them that hate the Lord. So that was Jehu that went down. So that's pretty cool that you can see here that Solomon was a preacher himself. Now I want to show you, I want to demonstrate real quickly how many times the word vanity is used in the book of Ecclesiastes. I just have one of each chapter. I'm not going to go to all of them in each chapter, but we see here chapter 1, verse number 2, he gets into it, and that basically summarizes the entire book. Chapter 1 there, verse number 2. So it says, chapter 2, verse number 1, I said in my heart, go to now, I will prove thee with mirth. Therefore enjoy pleasure, and behold, this also is vanity. So the very first verse of chapter number 2 uses the word vanity. Look over at chapter 3, verse number 19. For that which befalleth the sons of men befalleth beasts. Even one thing befalleth them. As the one dieth, so dieth the other. Yea, they have all one breath. So the man hath no preeminence above a beast, for all is vanity. Chapter 4, verse 4. Chapter 4, verse 4 says, again, I consider all travail, and every right work, that for this a man is envied of his neighbor. This is also vanity and vexation of spirit. Look at chapter 5, look at verse number 10. The Bible says, he that loveth silver shall not be satisfied with silver, nor he that loveth abundance with increase. This is also vanity. Look at chapter 6, verse number 2. A man to whom God hath given riches, wealth, and honor, so that he wanteth nothing for his soul of all that he desireth. Yet God giveth him not power to eat thereof, but a stranger eateth it. This is vanity, and it is an evil disease. Look over at chapter 7, verse number 6. For as the crackling of thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of the fool. This also is vanity. Chapter 8, verse number 10. And so I saw the wicked buried, who had come and gone from the place of the holy, and they were forgotten in the city where they had so done. This is also vanity. Look down at chapter 9, verse number 9. Live joyfully with the wife whom thou lovest all the days of the life of thy vanity, which which he hath given thee under the sun, all the days of thy vanity, for that is thy portion in this life, and in thy labor, which thou takest under the sun. And you see, again, like I said, chapter 10 is the only one that it does not occur. Look at chapter 11, look at verse number 8. But if a man live many years and rejoice in them all, yet let him remember the days of darkness, for they shall be many. All that cometh is vanity. Chapter 12, verse 8. Watch, and this concludes it basically. It brings it the full circle of the book. Vanity of vanity, saith the preacher. All is vanity. So I want to show you that the theme throughout the entire book of Ecclesiastes is that, in general, he's speaking of just the human life. And the theme is that life is vain. That life is vanity when you look at it. And you can tell by a couple of things. Number one, we just see the word being used. And like I said, it's used multiple times. I just chose one, so we didn't spend too much time on that. We didn't focus on the meaning of the verses, but I just wanted you to see that word just over and over again occur. Number one. Number two, we can see that the introduction started with vanity of vanity, saith the preacher. All is vanity. Then we see the conclusion right here, verse number 8. Vanity of vanity, saith the preacher. All is vanity. Showing that in between there, the same subject is being discussed. It's all about vanity. Now go to Isaiah chapter number 40 and we'll get a definition of what the word vanity actually means, or what it means to be vain. That's another form of the same word. Isaiah chapter number 40, look at verse number 17. Isaiah chapter number 40, verse number 17. It says, all nations before him are as nothing, and they are counted to him less than nothing and vanity. Look again down at verse number 23. That bringeth the princes to nothing, he maketh the judges of the earth as vanity. So notice that the word nothing and vanity are used interchangeable a couple of times there. The word vanity is referring to something that is meaningless, something that means nothing, that has zero value, something that is worthless, or you could say something that is futile. It's something that is absolutely meaningless. Now the Bible over and over again in the book of Ecclesiastes, like I said, keep in mind the book of Ecclesiastes is poetry. And Solomon himself, let's go back to Ecclesiastes chapter number 1 just for a second. Actually, turn to Psalm chapter 39. It's in the same direction. Go to Psalm chapter number 39 instead. We'll go to Ecclesiastes chapter 1 in just a moment. Go to Psalm chapter number 39. We get another location where it actually defines the word vanity for us. Psalms chapter number 39, and look at verse number 11. Verse number 11, what it discusses is something that is vanity, actually. So it says, when thou with rebukes dost correct man for iniquity, referring to God, when it says thou, as the antecedent, thou makest his beauty to consume away like a moth. Surely every man is vanity. Now notice what it says there, surely every man is vanity. But I want you to look at specifically of what is being discussed here. He says in verse number 11, when thou with rebukes dost correct man for iniquity, watch what he says, thou makest his beauty to consume away. So he's saying, when you do this, it says, it makes his beauty to consume away. And then he explains, right after that, surely every man is vanity. I want to have you go ahead and turn to 1 Peter chapter number 3, verse number 1. And this is something that the Bible, we're going to look at a few things that the Bible teaches is vain, or the Bible teaches is vanity, it's meaningless, it's nothing, it's worthless, it's futile. And one thing is beauty. Being worried about your outward appearance, being worried about when you go out of the house, what you look like, and what people think about what you look like, being consumed with that. Obviously, I'm not saying you should walk out of the house and never get a shower, not clean up. There's a level of being presentable. But our society, that's not what our society is. They're not just wanting to get a shower, making sure they're clean when they leave the house. Our society is obsessed and consumed with what people think about how they look. They're obsessed and consumed with their outward appearance, with how they look, with what other people think about them. That's all that they can think about. Now, this is something that affects women far more than it does men. But sadly to say, over history, let me say that. If you look at our culture, you can't tell. Sadly to say this, that men have become like they care just as much as women do about what people think about them. And for a man, that is a very embarrassing attribute. Amen. Women are supposed to be the weaker vessel. Men understand that. They understand that. Obviously, men are supposed to be the ones that are stronger. You know what's supposed to come with that? A level of confidence. There's a big difference in arrogance and confidence. A level of confidence. And you know what I think about someone when they just spend so much time, specifically a man, like doing their hair and making sure that they look perfect and checking every little thing about their body? I think they're lacking confidence. I think they're lacking an attribute of what a man should have. Yep. And that's where we become in our society today. Especially the younger generations. You can still see, there's a righteous remnant of the older generations that don't care as much about what other people think about them. Now, you turn to 1 Peter chapter number 3, verse number 1. 1 Peter, we'll begin reading in verse number 1. 1 Peter chapter number 3, verse number 1. This is a very important passage. Look, James. 1 Peter chapter number 3, verse number 1. Written to women. So it says, likewise, ye wives, be in subjection to your own husbands, that if any obey not the word, they also may without the word be won by the conversation of the wives, while they behold your chaste conversation coupled with fear. Now I want you to pay attention to verse number 3 and 4. He says, whose adorning? Let it not be that outward adorning of plaiting the hair and of wearing of gold or of putting on of apparel, but let it be the hidden man of the heart, and that which is not corruptible, even the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God of great price. Now what this passage is explaining is that women, when someone, I don't believe that this is teaching that you should never wear jewelry, or that you should never, that women, obviously there is, a desire for a woman to care more about the way that she looks than a man. I don't think there's anything wrong with a woman doing that. But what this passage is actually teaching is that when someone looks at you, when someone wants to, refer to you, or someone had to describe you to another person, or if they looked at you and they had to describe you, but what shouldn't pop out to them would be your, the plaiting of the hair, like it says here, or the gold. It shouldn't be your outward appearance. If they wanted to summarize you in some way, it shouldn't be by the way that you're dressed. And here's something that a lot of people, I've heard a lot of people say something, things along these lines. They would say something like, okay, so what if I really care about what I look like, but then I'm like that much more spiritual? Therefore, it kind of like overrides it. But here's the thing: the more spiritual you get, the less you're gonna care about what you look like. The less you're gonna be consumed with things that's vanity, things that are vain. You're not gonna be continually consumed about things that are meaningless, things that mean nothing to you. Now, my wife specifically, and this is something that gets brought up all the time. My wife specifically, she wears earrings, she wears a necklace, but I don't like my wife to wear makeup. I know many women wear makeup. I don't think that that's a sin. And I heard Pastor Jimenez give really good advice about that specific subject. And he said this, and I agree 100% with him. He said this. He said that if you're going to wear makeup, as a woman, obviously men don't wear makeup. If you're gonna wear makeup, make sure that when you put the makeup on and you leave the house, there shouldn't be a drastic change in your appearance. Someone shouldn't be able to look at you and be able to tell they've got on a lot of makeup, or they've got on makeup. If you're gonna be able to if you want to wear makeup, and I think that when I heard that, I thought that's a very good rule that could apply to in any area of your dress, in any way that you dress up. I don't believe that there should be when you dress up in any way. I don't think that there should be just like this drastic change in your appearance. Obviously, when you go to church, you need to dress nice, but it shouldn't just completely. You shouldn't be doing things that just completely alters your appearance, because what it does, it takes away from the aspect of being you would be being modest. You would be immodest at that point. Being modest is something that is referring to it doesn't draw attention. You're not walking down the street and everyone's just wanting to look at you. It's not just whether you're showing off a little bit too much skin, whether that's outfit's a little bit inappropriate. It's referring to the fact of, whether or not when you walk down the street, whether or not when you go to the store, if you're just the center of attention. And women that dress that way to be the center of attention, women that you see that become the center of attention, they dress that way to be the center of attention. And here's the really sad thing about it, this is true. Women that are that are married, or that are very, very concerned about their appearance, most of the time they're not concerned about what their husband thinks about their appearance. That's a major problem with that. It's not that they're going around, because you know what, they're fine walking around the house without makeup on. They're fine, doing all these other things around the house when their husband's there. But so that's a really sad thing that you can fall into, where, a really sinful thing you can fall into, where you're consumed with what other men of this world care about. And obviously men can fall into this as well, but this is an area where women definitely struggle more than men. And the Bible says that it's vanity. Now I want you to go to Proverbs chapter number 31. Proverbs chapter number 31. Now, and there's so many women today, women that will go to college and they spend their entire life just consumed with what they look like. And then they get older, they become 50, 60, and they start doing things like dyeing their hair, getting Botox, getting some sort of surgery or whatever, whatever they have to do just to alter their appearance, to try to preserve their age, preserve whatever beauty that they had when they were younger. When the Bible says that it's going to fade away like a moth, like we just read. The Bible says that every man is vain. Now, what happens is these women, when they're younger, they try to preserve their beauty, but there's going to come a time when that beauty's not there anymore. There's going to come a time when you no longer are pretty, and that's a fact. When you walk down the street, the guys aren't going to be, when you're 60, 70 years old, the younger guys aren't going to be just checking you out. Now here's the thing, that's why it's important while you're younger to start focusing on the things of God. Because those 60, 70, 80-year-old women, they've got some of them 5 years left of their life, 10 years left of their life, and they wasted it on vain things. Things when they're 60 or 70 years old that can't profit them. And I don't know about you, but one of the most shameful things when I go out, when having my daughter with me, is when there's a 60, 70-year-old woman walking down the aisle and she's dressed like a 15 or 16-year-old woman. That is so shameful. When there's a gray-headed woman who should be able to sit there and give my daughter advice, instead of being able to give their granddaughters advice, instead of being able to set an example, they know nothing, because they spend their entire life obsessed with something that is worthless, something that is futile, something that when they got older means nothing. And guess what? It's gone. Now what do you have? Instead of being when you're 60, 70 years old, a mature Christian. Instead of being when you're 60, 70 years old, a virtuous woman. Look at Proverbs chapter number 31. Proverbs chapter number 31. This is the famous passage about the virtuous woman. It gives all the characteristics of the virtuous woman, and it says in verse number 30, favor is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. So as it says, favor is deceitful. What does favor mean? Favor in the Bible, we would say, like in our modern vernacular today for the word favor, we would say popularity. So it's saying popularity is deceitful. Favor, getting people's favor, people liking you. Notice that those two things go together. That favor and beauty. If you're beautiful, people will like you. But guess what? Favor is deceitful. They don't really like you. They don't like you for who you are. They like you for what you look like. And guess what? When you are that 60, 70-year-old woman, guess what? If you got into a car accident, something happened to you, as a man, as a woman, that would relate to both. They're no longer your friends anymore. They were there the entire time. Why? Favor is deceitful and beauty is vain. Those things are coupled together for a reason. The Bible says again, right here, we have another passage where it says that beauty is vain. Your outward appearance is meaningless. Like I said though, obviously I'm not telling you, don't take a shower. I'm not telling you just not care at all about what you look like. Obviously, we should be presentable. Obviously, God gives us requirements. But when we get dressed, we shouldn't be worrying about what the world thinks about. The first thing that a man should be worried about is that we're meeting the regulations of what the Bible says. Because the Bible gives specific directives on how to dress, on what to wear. Now, there are other commandments like we saw given like the ladies just now as an example, where it specifically says to women, it doesn't say specifically not to adorn yourselves, but let it not be the adorning of the outward appearance. As in, when someone looks at you, that shouldn't be what just pops. That shouldn't be when someone looks at you as how they would characterize you. Now, I'm going to have you turn to another passage, but we're going to keep something in mind here. Go to Jeremiah chapter number 4, verse number 30. Jeremiah chapter 4, verse number 30. I want you to notice, and this is going to be a theme, the next thing we're going to look at, that comes up over and over again with the word vain, and that is deceitful. Notice it said favor is deceitful and beauty is vain. Now, at first glance, a person probably wouldn't think that that's being used synonymously, or that there's any reason why those are used together. But here, Jeremiah chapter 4, verse 30, this is the last verse of another verse that refers specifically to beauty being vain. God speaking unto Israel, and this is definitely poetic here. He says, when thou art spoiled, what wilt thou do? Though thou clothest thyself with crimson, though thou deckest thee with ornaments of gold, though thou rendest thy face with painting, so I'm not putting makeup on. In vain shalt thou make thyself fair. That's like beauty. Thy lovers will despise thee. They will seek thy life. Go to Job chapter number 15, verse number 35. Now I want you to keep in mind, like I said, where it says, favor is deceitful and beauty is vain. Go to Job chapter number 15, verse number 35. We're going to flip through a few of these. It's probably not something you would notice on your own while reading through the Bible. You have to do a word study on it. But notice in Job chapter number 15, verse number 35, it says, they conceive mischief and bring forth vanity. And then it says this, and their belly prepareth deceit. So notice vanity and deceit was used together there, just like we saw deceitful and vain used. Go to Job 31:5, just a few pages over. A few pages to the right in your Bible. Job chapter number 31, verse number 5. He says, if I have walked with vanity, or if my foot hath hasted to deceit. Very clear there that they're being used synonymous, or they're being used interchangeable. Go to Psalm chapter number 10, verse number 7. I try to put these all close to one another. Psalm chapter number 10, verse number 7. Psalm chapter 10, verse number 7 says, his mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. Under his tongue is mischief and vanity. Go to Psalms chapter number 24, verse number 4. Psalms chapter number 24, verse number 4. It says, he that hath clean hands and a pure heart, who hath not lifted up his soul unto vanity, nor sworn deceitful. So notice over and over again, go to Proverbs chapter 30, verse 8. Over and over again, we keep saying the words vanity and deceit, vanity and lies. Proverbs chapter number 30, verse number 8, he says, remove far from me vanity and lies. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with food convenient for me. Look at Isaiah chapter number 59, verse number 4. Isaiah chapter number 59, verse number 4. Isaiah chapter number 59, verse number 4, it says, none calleth for justice, nor any pleadeth for truth. They trust in vanity and speak lies. They conceive mischief and bring forth iniquity. Now that's one thing before I started looking at this, and that was what caused me to do this search, was I remember multiple times the words vanity and lies and vanity and deceit being used together when it was referring to a false prophet. And I thought, I wonder how many times that shows up. This is just a portion of it. It's way more than this. Over and over again, when God will refer to a false religion, or when God will speak to a false prophet, he'll say that they're trusting in vanity, and he'll also say that they're trusting in lies. Now we get the definition of lie in Job chapter number 21, verse number 24, or 34, I'm sorry, Job chapter number 21, verse number 34. Job chapter number 21, verse number 34. This is Job speaking. He says, how then comfort ye me in vain, seeing in your answers there remaineth falsehoods. We also have Ezekiel chapter number 13, verse number 9. It says, and mine hand shall be upon the prophets that see vanity, and that divine lies. They shall not be in the assembly of my people, neither shall they be written in the writing of the house of Israel, neither shall they enter into the land of Israel, and ye shall know that I am the Lord God. So he brought up the false prophets again. He said number one, that they see vanity, and he said that they divine lies. Ezekiel 22:28, and her prophets have dubbed them with untempered mortar. And he said, seeing vanity and divining lies unto them. We saw here that he said, you have comforted me in vain. Ye have comforted me in vain. He's saying that the comfort that you have given me is vain. And why? Because it was a lie. We saw over and over again that those that trust in the false prophets, those that trust in the lies of the false prophets, that it's vain. Now listen carefully. Jeremiah 16:19 says this, O Lord, my strength and my fortress and my refuge in the day of affliction. So he first references God. And he says that he's my strength, he says he's my fortress, and he's my refuge. He's saying it's something that you can trust. Now listen to what it says next. The Gentiles come unto thee from the ends of the earth, and shall say, surely our fathers have inherited lies, vanity, and now listen to this, and things wherein there is no profit. That right there defines the similarities why the word lie keeps coming up with vanity over and over again. We keep saying falsehood, lies, deceitful, and lie. It's because neither one of them can profit. If you remember Ecclesiastes chapter number 1, it said, vanity of vanity, saith the preacher, all is vanity. And then he asks the question, what profit hath a man of all his labor under the sun? He's saying it's meaningless. He's saying it's futile. Like I said earlier, we'll get to in a minute the poetry of the book of Ecclesiastes. I want you to turn to 1 Corinthians chapter number 15. Another thing that the Bible over and over again brings up that's vain is false religion. It brings up false religion repeatedly. And we'll see that right here in 1 Corinthians chapter number 15, what it's referring to specifically. 1 Corinthians 15, it says in verse number 1, moreover, brethren, I declare unto you the gospel which I preached unto you, which also ye have received, and wherein ye stand. Now watch what he says in verse number 2, by which also ye are saved, if ye keep in memory what I preached unto you. And then he says this, unless ye have believed in vain. And that confuses a lot of people, but he actually gives you the interpretation of it later on in the chapter. He tells you verse 12, now if Christ be preached that he rose from the dead, how say some among you that there is no resurrection of the dead? So he tells you right there that people in Corinth aren't believing that Jesus rose from the dead. But if there be no resurrection of the dead, then is Christ not risen. And if Christ be not risen, then is our preaching vain, and your faith is also vain. So he tells you, and here's the thing, the Jehovah's Witnesses, this is a perfect example of that. The Jehovah's Witnesses do not believe in the bodily resurrection of Jesus Christ. They believe that it was a spiritual resurrection. They believe that he did not raise bodily and physically out of the grave. And you go to that gospel, it's a vain gospel. Yep. It's a gospel that has no profit. That's the definition of it. And you know what else it is? It's a lie. That's why we keep saying deceit, vanity, and lies being used all together in one. Right here we get a perfect definition of all these things. That when he discusses the Gentiles, how they have a different rock, they have a different fortress, they have a different refuge, that's because all the religions of this world, what they're trusting in is vanity. And what does that mean? It means it's a lie. What else does that mean? That means it cannot profit. I want you to turn to Ecclesiastes chapter number 4, verse number 8. Ecclesiastes chapter number 4, verse number 8. That's why the Bible oftentimes will refer to idols and say they cannot profit. It'll also say that they are vain. Ecclesiastes chapter number 4, verse number 8. Another thing that the Bible brings up over and over again that is vain and vanity in this life is riches. Oops. Ecclesiastes chapter number 4, verse number 8. The Bible reads, there is one alone, and there is not a second. Yea, he hath neither child nor brother, yet is there no end of all his labor. Neither is his eye satisfied with riches, neither saith he, for whom do I labor and bereave my soul of good? This is also vanity, yea, is a sore travail. Go to Psalms chapter 39, verse number 6. So notice there he said, there is one alone, and there is not a second. Yea, he hath neither child nor brother, yet is there no end of all his labor. Saying he works all of his life. And then he says, neither is his eye satisfied with riches. He's saying he's never happy, he's never placable. You can't placate this person, he's never happy with what he has. Look at Psalms chapter 39, verse number 6. It says, surely every man walketh in a vain show. Surely they are disquieted in vain. And watch what it says. He heapeth up riches, and knoweth not who shall gather them. That's the exact same concept that we saw here in Ecclesiastes chapter number 4. He's referring to the fact that you spend your entire life laboring. He's referring to physical possessions, gold, silver, your house, things like that. You spend your whole life just laboring with those things, right? You spend your whole life just going to work. And he says, then when you die, it profits you nothing. When you die, it's gone. You don't have it anymore. You can't take your riches with you, like Job says, like it says in 1 Timothy 6. When you die, all that's staying here. At that point, it comes to an end. Go to Psalms chapter number 62, verse number 10. See this again. Psalms chapter number 62, verse number 10. It says, for whom do I labor and bereave my soul of good? This is also vanity. Yea, is also sore travel. That's what it said in Ecclesiastes 4:8. Look at Psalm 62, verse 10. Trust not in oppression, and become not vain in robbery. And then watch what he says. If riches increase, set not your heart upon them. Go to Proverbs chapter 30, verse number 8. We're doing more of a Bible study on the word vain this week. We're on the word on vanity, things that are vanity. Proverbs chapter number 30, verse number 8. We read this earlier, but I'll look at a different aspect of it. Remove far from me vanity and lies. So we talked about those two things are coupled together. And then he says, give me neither poverty nor riches. So notice the subject that's being discussed when he says, remove from me vanity and lies. And he says, give me neither poverty nor riches. That means riches would be vain. Feed me with food, convenient for me. Ecclesiastes chapter number 5, verse number 10. The Bible says, he that loveth silver shall not be satisfied with silver, nor he that loveth abundance with increase. This is also vanity. And that's so true. Even see, I'm not a rich person at all. When you look around at the world, you see the rich people of this world. They just aren't satisfied with the amount of money. I know a lot of rich people in my life. I have a very close, in-law, in my family. My wife can testify to this. He's very wealthy, and he's the most stingy, just ungrateful person I've ever met in my entire life. He's the most, and not only that, he's the most miserable person I've ever met in my entire life. Riches, if you set your heart upon riches, you'll be let down with vanity. You're not taking them with you. Yep. There is no eternal value to storing up riches and abundance upon this earth. Amen. Go back to Ecclesiastes chapter number 1. Likewise, your beauty, likewise, your outward appearance, it will fade. It will leave you. Like the Bible talked about earlier, it's like a moth. It will corrupt like a moth. One of the reasons why I believe that Solomon specifically is the person that wrote this book is because obviously God uses the character of the person as well. Just like when Jesus came down to this earth, when God came down to this earth, was born on this earth as a man. He was on this earth, he was 100% man, and he was 100% God. He's referred to as the Word of God. Well, the Word of God, the written Word of God is the same way. It was written by man, 100%, but it was also 100% God. God dictated the words, but God chose specific people to write His words down. And you can see their personalities bleed through. And I believe that the reason why Solomon was the person that authored the book of Ecclesiastes, which is a book about life. It's a book about life being vain. Almost everything of life being vain. Riches, beauty. It's because Solomon was able to experience all that life offered. Solomon, the Bible says, was the greatest king that has ever reigned upon this earth. Greatest as far as in abundance of riches. Greatest as far as in how many, how many areas that he reigned over in that sense. Look at verse number 12 when he starts speaking, and Solomon actually introduces himself. Verse number 12, it says, I, the preacher, was king over Israel and Jerusalem, and I gave my heart to seek and search out my wisdom concerning all things that are done under heaven. This sore travail hath God given to the sons of man to be exercised therewith. Notice that every verse we just skip down through here all the way over to chapter 2 that starts out with I. So this is all about Solomon right now. Verse number 14, I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and vexation of spirit. So he says, I personally, talking about himself, he says, I have seen all the works. He says, it's all vanity and vexation of spirit. Verse number 15, that which is crooked cannot be made straight, and that which is wanting cannot be numbered. I commune with mine own heart, saying, Lo, I am come to great estate. I have gotten more wisdom than all they that have been before me in Jerusalem. Yea, my heart had great experience of wisdom and knowledge, and I gave my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceive that this also is vexation of spirit. Verse number 18, for in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow. I said in my heart, Go to now. I will prove thee with mirth, therefore enjoy pleasure, and behold, this also is vanity. Look at verse number 2, I said of laughter, it is mad, and of mirth. So my happiness, what doth it? What doeth it? I sought in my heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting my heart with wisdom, and to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was that good for the sons of men, which they should do under the heaven all the days of their life. I made me great works, I builded me houses, I planted me vineyards, I made me gardens and orchards, and I planted trees in them of all kind of fruits. I made me pools of water to water therewith the wood that bringeth forth trees. I got me servants and maidens, and had servants born in my house. Also I had great possessions of great and small cattle, above all that were in Jerusalem before me. I gathered me also silver and gold, and the peculiar treasure of kings and of the provinces. I got me men, singers and women singers, and the delights of the sons of men as musical instruments, and that of all sorts. So I was great and increased more than all that were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me. Now watch what he says. And whatsoever mine eyes desired, I kept not from them. I withheld not my heart from any joy, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor, and this was my portion of all my labor. Then I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought, and on all the labor that I had labored to do, and behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. Now if we stop reading right there, I can see how a person could just walk away and be like, man, that is very depressing. Man, that just puts me in a down mood. That just makes me, what's the point of life, right? He's saying, and this, like I said, this is why I believe that Solomon was the one that was introduced here in the beginning. Why Solomon is the one that wrote this Bible, or this book specifically, of Ecclesiastes, is because he experienced everything. He said, I literally had everything, and he concludes it and says this. And at the end of it, after I looked and saw all of my works and everything that I'd done, everything that I had, he said it's meaningless. It's all absolutely meaningless. Now turn to the end of the book, Ecclesiastes chapter number 12. Ecclesiastes chapter number 12. Now we'll read there first in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse number 8 will begin, because this is the conclusion. In verse number 8 it begins, Vanity of vanity, saith the preacher, all is vanity. And moreover, because the preacher was wise, he's referring to himself, he still taught the people knowledge, yea, he gave good heed and sought out and set in order many proverbs. The preacher sought to find out acceptable words, and that which was written was upright, referring to the Bible, even words of truth. The words of the wise are as goads, and as nails fastened by the masters of assemblies, which are given from one shepherd. And further by these, my son, be admonished, of making many books there is no end, and much study is a weariness of the flesh. Now verse number 13, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Now that right there is actually the way to interpret the entire book of Ecclesiastes, and he tells you that at the very end. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. He says in verse number 14, for God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. Now if you look over it at Ecclesiastes chapter number 11, verse number 7, I mentioned before to you that I was going to show you how you can tell that the book of Ecclesiastes and that God oftentimes in Scripture is being facetious. He's being sarcastic. Like he says in Ecclesiastes chapter number 11, verse number 7, truly the light is sweet and a pleasant thing it is for the eyes to behold the sun. But if a man live many years and rejoice in them all, yet let him remember the days of darkness, for they shall be many. All that cometh is vanity. He's saying if a person's going to live a long life, he's saying, make sure that he remembers that when he dies, he's going to be dead forever. That's what he's saying. And the way he words it, saying it's going to be darkness, he's trying to word it in a very depressing way. What he's trying to do, he's trying to make the reader, he's trying to literally put the state of mind of the reader in a very depressed state. That's what he's trying to do. Now let's look at verse number 9. Rejoice, O young man, in thy youth, and let thy heart cheer thee in the days of thy youth, and walk in the ways of thine heart, and in the sight of thine eyes. Now watch this. But know thou that for all these things God will bring thee into judgment. So notice how he words it. He says, rejoice in the days of your youth. Have fun in the days of your youth. But then he says this, do whatever you want to do. Follow your heart, basically, like people say that, right? And he says, but know thou that God's going to bring you into judgment at the end of your life. Solomon starts out the book of Ecclesiastes talking about life being vanity. And he discusses all the things of life. And we look at a few of those things in life. Beauty. We look at beauty, the outward appearance. We also look at riches being meaningless. We look at the false religions, all the other gods that aren't able to save, all these other things in the world that are meaningless, that are worthless, that are futile. Then he gets to the end of the book, and he refers to the young man, right? He's writing to the young man, just like the book of Proverbs was also written to the young man. And he puts the reader in a very depressed state of mind. Like, man, what am I going to do in my life? He strongly emphasizes that there's so much in life that's meaningless. And then he says, in verse number 13, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. He's actually giving you advice about the book of Ecclesiastes. He's saying, make sure before you make a judgment about something, or make sure before you feel like you understand something, make sure you hear the whole thing. Right? And he says this, fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Saying all these other things in life are vain. Look, we're going to look at a couple of passages, 2 more passages and we're done. Turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 9. He's saying all of these other things in life are vain. Life is full of many things that are vanity, that are a waste of time, that are futile. But you know what does matter? Serving God. You know what does matter? Keeping his commandments. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse number 9. It says, for we are laborers together with God. Ye are God's husbandry. Ye are God's building. According to the grace of God which is given unto me as a wise master builder. I have laid the foundation, and another buildeth thereon. But let every man take heed how he buildeth thereon. For other foundation can no man lay than that is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Now if any man build upon this foundation gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, stubble, every man's work shall be made manifest. Remember, just like it said in verse number 14. Notice at the end of Ecclesiastes chapter 12, it referred to the day of judgment. I'll read to you again just to remind you. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil, referring to the wood, hay, and stubble as evil, and also the gold and silver as being good. It says, every man's work shall be made manifest, for the day shall declare it. because it shall be revealed by fire. And the fire shall try every man's work of what sort it is. If any man's work abide, which he hath built thereupon, he shall receive a reward. If any man's work shall be burned, he shall suffer loss, but he himself shall be saved, yet so as by fire. Turn to 2 Peter chapter number 3, verse number 9. 2 Peter chapter number 3, verse number 9. So he explains, once you're saved, at that moment you begin building upon the foundation. Upon the foundation, which is Jesus Christ, the rock. That is your salvation. And you can choose to build upon that gold, you can choose to build upon that silver, precious stones, or you can build wood, hay, or something. Things that are vain, things that are meaningless, things that the Bible says at the end are going to be burned up. It's going to be a complete waste of time. And that's why in Ecclesiastes chapter number 12, he starts off at the very beginning. Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in it. So he addresses the young person, and he says, remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth. Why? Because there's a lot of things in your life that are vain. There's a lot of things that and your life is short. You know what you can do? You can waste your entire life. You can get saved at a young age, and then literally waste your entire life on things that do not matter. Look at 2 Peter chapter 3, verse number 9. The Lord is not slack concerning his promises, some men count slackness, but is long-suffering to usward, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up. Seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved, what manner of persons ought ye to be in holy conversation and godliness, looking for and hastening unto the coming of the day of God, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. Nevertheless, according to his promise, nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for new heavens and a newer, wherein dwelleth righteousness. And he says this, wherefore, beloved, seeing that ye look for such things, be diligent that ye be found in him, in peace, without spot, and blameless. So what is the conclusion of the matter? What does the book of Ecclesiastes teach? What does the Bible teach about all these different subjects of things that are vanity, things that are vain? There are things in this life that have eternal value. There are things that you will be able to take with you when you get to heaven, like souls, like getting people saved. That's one of those things. Like rewards that you can store up in heaven, gold, silver, precious stones. And then there are a lot of other things in life that are just totally and completely empty, that are totally and completely meaningless. And you can literally waste your entire life on those things and be at the end of your life and have nothing. And have nothing. Why? Because it's meaningless. Because it's worthless. You know, God warns us about this multiple times. God warns us about how short our life is. And the time that we have on this earth, we need to be very wise with that time. We need to make sure, that we're not spending our time on things that are vain. And if someone like Solomon, who had all that the world could offer, tells you when it's all over, when he's an old man, and he wants to give advice to the young man, he wants to give advice to those that are in their youth, he says, let me let you know something about all the riches, all the honor, all the glory that I have, the wisdom that I have, he said it's all vain. He said the whole conclusion of the matter, you know what should summarize your life? Fearing God and keeping his commandments. Because God at the end is going to bring everything into judgment. And it's going to be either one of two things. There's not a middle ground. Your life is going to be made up of gold, silver, and precious stones over here, or it's going to be wood, hay, and stubble. It's going to be a wasted life. I don't want to be at the throne and getting ready to step into eternity, and all I'm going to have for eternity is just my salvation. Yet so as by fire. I was saved, yet so as by fire. That's not how I want to spend my eternity. I want to spend my life not wasted upon my looks, not wasted upon the things that I've done in this life that just aren't going to affect eternity at all. Like, while tons of people are going to hell, people that you can get rewards while getting saved that you're going to keep in eternity and then also save that person from going to hell. I want to spend my time on things that have eternal impact. That's what I want to spend my time on. And that's what all of God's people should do. Let's bow our heads and have a word prayer. Heavenly Father God, we thank you, dear Lord, for all the warnings about how short life is, number one. All the vanity of life, dear Lord God. We ask you to just continue to give us a deeper understanding of your word, dear Lord. We ask you that you would just bless us and bless the rest of the day. We thank you for the opportunity to gather here, dear Lord God, just be with us and keep us safe. We love you in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.